I waved. Bob. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Don.
You all have better lighting in your office than I have in my office. I'm kind of dark.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All righty. So we got an email. Obviously, George Tarlis will not be able to join us. Is the 707? Is that Todd?
That is Todd. Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then Town and Country, is that Morgan?
That's me.
Hi, Morgan. All right, and then we're waiting for Amber. Bob?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries. Amber. Hi, Amber.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Good. All right. Bob, would you like me to call the meeting to order?
Yes, please.
All right. So we're calling our meeting for December 17th, 2020 of the Fire and EMS Medical Services Task Force. So meeting called to order. Bob, will you do a roll call?
Yep. Alderman Mortland.
Here.
Alderman Allen.
Here.
Mr. Sanders.
Here.
Ms. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. Solomon. I think he's here and muted.
Okay.
Okay, he's present. And so you do have a quorum. And just a reminder, we are live on YouTube.
Thank you. Thank you. So the meetings for the October 13th, 2020 meeting minutes have been distributed. Any questions? And if not, can I get a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor, just say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Nay. All right, the minutes stand approved for October 13th. So the goal today is
You're muted, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that, everyone. Somebody, I'll have to turn off my other video conferencing device, Teams, so it won't call me. Somebody just called me, so it did. And so the goal of today's meeting and the topic is really the presentation on our Town and Country's firehouse options. As we discussed in previously, the firehouse currently at Clayton and Mason is the only house, and we've discussed the response times that are being handled. So as Todd Solomon had brought up previously, as you know, making sure all of the residents are aware of the lag in response times in certain farther reaching sections in Ward 1 and Ward 4 with regards to the EMS services. And then to just discuss, in the best case scenario, making sure that is a priority for our city and our residents, is what would the options be, for having multiple houses, firehouses, and then what would the cost be? So we would kind of build the plan, and as we work through it, determine not only the response time changes, the service changes, but then obviously how that affects budget and affects the capital expenditure from that standpoint. So Bob has prepared some costs from what it took Town and Country to build the current firehouse, and we can kind of go over that. And then Chief Sadler and Bob and the previous commission the Fire and EMS Commission have discussed the different locations ideally would be there, but all kind of starts with location and then cost. So Bob, I'm going to let you kind of take it over here and kind of go through some of that to start for us.
Thanks, Alderman. If we could start, Morgan, if you could bring up the PowerPoint, that would be great. There they're puppies. Okay, so the current station at the corner of Clayton and Mason was built in 1991. It is 11,300 square feet. It is on 3.47 acres, and the land was purchased for $660,000. So the next slide will go into some of the costs that were involved. So some of these are, the surveys, architectural work. Again, it was 1991, $60,000, property $660,000. The construction contract was for $1,476,000. Then there were some landscaping expenses combined. They probably, there's $30,000 for trees, $10,000 for seed and sod, $30,000 for irrigation. So about $80,000 for the irrigation, trees, sod. There was an expense of $21,000 for a traffic signal to be installed. I'm sure you're all familiar with that, to access Straub's and the fire station for emergency egress. So that all totaled up about $2.3 million. Again, this was in 1991. Morgan, we can go to the next. Excellent. So the current station, we contacted an architect who has done major renovations and new construction for fire stations in this market. Just a rough estimate without any kind of inspection to do some major renovations to this current facility. They came up on a square footage and came up with 1.7 million. The city did do major renovations in 2012, 2013, where they actually moved, some of you may remember, moved the fire operations, the employees over to the Troop C building. It was vacant at the time, and had temporary trailers for the firefighter paramedics to stay in. So that's now that children's specialty facility there at Mason and 40. And the city undertook $800,000 in renovations, did mechanical, electrical, put in new fixtures. And at the time, they just had 2 big bunk rooms. And part of this renovation was to make individual sleeping rooms. So they walled them in and have doors for each, whoever's on. Each individual then has their own room. What they did not, or what we did not accomplish at the time really, and understand it was attempt, but wasn't possible in the planning, was energy efficiency. I've talked to Chief Sadler, and the city's done a lot of work on HVAC. There was no good way to insulate the building. The individual bunk rooms do not have individual controls, climate control. So the building is a brick building. In the summertime, it heats up, and the wintertime, it stays cold. So it does use a lot of utilities to keep it running. So that's kind of the situation on that current station. Morgan? So as Alderman Mortland said, in order to better serve the community, there was some, I guess, rough look at what would be ideal locations. And I think when we all met at the firehouse or at the fire station, their auditorium, Chief Sadler had talked about, just in general, a location potentially by the salt facility that the city owns, and potentially redoing our facility here at City Hall as being two separate locations, just kind of as a plan, as an idea for new facilities. So we can take a look at the salt facility first. So this is at 141 and 40. And the top photo here is an aerial. We currently have 2.6 acres, and the salt building is 6,000 square feet. The city's property is a kind of a long linear piece in here. All of the grass is mowed out right of way. So, and then in the lower right, I'm sure most of you have seen it. And I have been notified by my other city friends that we have one of the most beautiful salt facilities around. Effort went in to be sure it looked like a nice office building or structure with a cupola. But it's a small office in there and a salt facility. So again, that's a potential location if you wanted to build a new facility, possibly even a joint type of facility. It is on currently 2.6 acres. There's additional land available, and that building is 6,000 square feet. All right, next. So the City Hall facility, we are on 5.7 acres, and our current building here is 13,900 square feet. Potential, I guess, could be to add on newer fire quarters and bays while keeping City Hall operations here as well. And we do have quite a bit of land, green space surrounding our facility here. And again, having a location kind of on the east side of the city here, and then more on the west side at the salt facility, just look like being able to deploy our resources more rapidly. All right, next. So in talking with some others and Chief Sadler, a prototype station cost approximately $5 million for construction, would need to be somewhere in the 12,000 to 15,000 square feet. If you wanted to do police or public works type substation, you'd need obviously some additional square footage, 15 to 17,000 square feet. So then we did look at some other cities and what they are doing. Webster Groves is in the process right now on Elm. They had a smaller station number 2, which just houses one pumper. It's basically staffed by 4 firefighter paramedics. And that facility under construction is estimated to cost them $5 million. I will note, and I think it's interesting, that Webster is 6 square miles. They do have 2 stations, and we may have talked about this before. Their main station has a ladder truck and an ambulance, and they staff it with 6. Their other secondary location is just a pumper, but it has paramedics on board. So they can arrive on scene quick from that location, stabilize a patient, and then have an ambulance come for transport. The City of Webster Groves operational is 4.6 million is their annual operational expense for both of these houses. And if anytime anybody's got any questions,
Okay,
I'll
yeah.
try to watch.
Yeah, Bob, I see. I'm putting so just before we get into the comparison, I just wanted to go through. We have one house, and then just go through the what we have in the house, how many staff, and the existing operation current. So as we look at these, and we have a 11.4 square miles, is it?
Yes, correct.
So in that, it just so for comparison, as we talk through it from a those it's just what do we have today, and then we can keep moving if you don't mind.
Okay. No, excellent point. So, and it's a later slide, but would be better to put it up now. So it is, or to talk about it now. The current station is staffed with 5, and as Chief Sadler said, he would prefer to have 6, right? 4 on the pumper, 2 on the ambulance. We also, out of our firehouse, have they call it a brush truck that can carry a small amount of water, can get out into, if there's a brush fire on one of our larger pieces of property, they can get out. And we also have an ATV, which they use at Queenie to get out on those trails, or if they need it, they bring it to our events and those kinds of things. So to answer your question, we have a pumper, an ambulance, staffed with 5, and in that one location. Is that kind of what?
Yes, I mean, so you said we have a pumper and the ambulance staffed with 5. We don't have a ladder.
No ladder truck.
Yep. And then square miles was 11.
Correct.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. No, it's a great point. Our next was Ladue, and Chief Sadler had brought this up as well, how Ladue is a kind of comparison when we met there. They recently replaced station number 1, and that's their main firehouse. It has an ambulance and a pumper. The cost for that rebuild was $4.4 million. And they also rebuilt station number 2, which is on Clayton Road. The photo's down below. You've probably seen it, across from Lester's, Clayton and I-64. So they rebuilt both their fire stations. But again, they have a similar model to what Webster Groves is running, with one facility that has the ambulance and the pumper, the other facility that just has the pumper, but it's running with the EMS. So doesn't require as much staffing. And then again, the EMS paramedics get there on the pumper and can stabilize. Their fire department operating budget in Ladue is 5.7 million, and they are 8.3 square miles. Okay, so our current contract, just as a reminder, I know we've been through these. We're paying the West County Fire and EMS $3.7 million annually for operating expenses, and currently 167,000 in capital. We do have one station with the pumper, an ambulance, the brush truck, and the ATV, and they staff it with 5. Again, would prefer 6. Again, we had talked about it before, but just as a point of reference, if the city was annexed by the fire district, that the current tax rate of 98 cents, or the proposed tax rate, would generate about 8.6 million. That's if you were in the fire district. All right. And then my final slide is a mock-up showing, and this is Chief Sadler's map, and we just of existing stations. So you see, working from my right to left, Glendale, Kirkwood, DePere, West County 2, West County 1, Metro West, but the 2 stars are where these potential locations would be, again, City Hall and Salt Mill. Just again, kind of sticking a pin on a piece of paper to kind of put something out. So I know I went through it kind of quick. And again, any questions, any?
So okay. And then currently, just one question, just for comparison purposes, and I know we're going to get to funding at a later source. Is Webster or Ladue, they're their own city-owned fire stations, correct?
Right.
Right. So they own their fire stations. They have their own fire department, correct?
Right. They're a municipal fire department.
There's no fire district.
No.
Thank you. All right. Okay. So at this point, if we don't have questions on those three, this is really the kind of the discussion point, kind of brainstorming session. As Todd had said last time, looking at, why it's, it stuck with me, why people buy houses in town and country. It's for, the amenities and all the other things but with the assumption it comes with public safety. We have an excellent police force, and we have an excellent relationship with West County Fire and EMS in handling that. So I think that's always our first priority from a board and a city initiative or directive is safety first in looking at it. So knowing that there's concerns around response time, there's concerns around investing in this existing firehouse. I want to just kind of open it up to really, we had talked about, Todd had said, let's assume we're going to do two houses. So what are the questions? What are the thoughts that we would have around that to develop just some kind of framework to design a strategic plan, but also one of our next meetings will be Chief Sadler will be joining us if we have questions around service, staffing, in different areas like that. Those are things we could all look at. So I'm going to open up the floor. Don, Amber, Todd.
Yeah, so I'll jump in there if you don't mind, Ryan. So basically what it boils down to, do we want to get with West County Fire Protection District and have them have two firehouses in our district that they would really control, correct? That's one of the options, or we do it ourselves. And, I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. They know what they're doing, depending on cost and what have you. I mean, they've done a splendid job so far.
Okay. So they come up with a plan for the two houses, and they discuss with it. Anybody have anything around the locations, or just let them kind of discuss that overall?
I have a question on the Salt location. Bob, you had said that that's a Missouri State Highway right-of-way. Are we able to build in that space?
We would, Don, it's a great question. We would obviously need to coordinate with MoDOT, but we have worked with them very well on the west side of that same interchange where we've done some landscaping, some beautification. We've worked with them on the Mason and 40 plantings where we came in and with some contributions, we've put in some native areas and some trees. We're mowing a lot of those areas. So I think in exchange for some landscape and maintenance and beautification, as long as they don't have any plans, which I don't believe they do, and we wouldn't impede their access at all to their facilities, I'm sure we could work with them. There may be some monetary cost involved for their right-of-way, but I'm sure.
I know where that Salt thing is. I know just being involved with the police commission and what have you. I mean, the traffic out there is terrible, right? Trying to get to some of those locations right now for the fire department and ambulance EMS. So obviously if they're closer there, that would kind of help alleviate some of that. But the congestion and the way those roads are configured out there is kind of messed up, isn't it?
Yeah, it would still be quite a bit getting through
Right.
the, 40, 141, but at least you're right there. And then so that location would help with west, southwest, and then north. Certainly an improvement from where it is right now.
So, and it was brought to me one other idea, and this is something we'd have to talk to the chief around, is currently they are using their Mason and Manchester firehouse to service Mason Road. And they both respond, and in the whole process, the dispatch goes out and all areas kind of come and respond and different for supporting and helping the group. But they're currently using the Mason house to handle some of the south side of town and country, to where, not knowing if we added that and leveraged and putting something, and the thought was something just north of 40 or around 64 in Mason that could get to both sides quicker. Would that be another option? Was a suggestion given to me. So it's just something like trying to think out of the box. They have a house, we build a new big house that covers the rest of it, instead of having to keep the existing house that the chief has said, it just was designed in a different age, and it was designed with, much more commercial feel than he said. Their main house off of Henry has like 6 HVAC, but they're all residential, and they do zoning, and it's a lot easier to do replacements as opposed to having one commercial chiller and unit, and it's a lot more costly as that happens. And so, as we have this discussion, obviously we're looking 10 years out. It's going to take a couple of years to figure out the funding and then to build it and doing these things. But that was an option of saying, asking if they could use that house and then build a bigger house accordingly is just an idea. So any other thoughts as we talk location, we talk, obviously talking, what would, if we keep the existing house and we staff that, and then if we add another house, depending on the size of the house, we're trying to solve 2 problems. One is response time, and 2 is, I'll call it facilities management and just overall the EMS service over time. So the response time, putting it in 2 locations solves different things, and looking at that service coverage. So handling that, but then the opposite approach is, what is the ongoing facilities cost and maintenance and management, in addition to the staffing and the budget over time. Bob, anything to add to that, or?
No, I think, Alderman, as you had said earlier, it's probably a good idea, now that we've gathered some information and kind of shared our insight here, is to bring in Chief Sadler and maybe whatever questions we have posed to him in advance, if the commission has them, such as staffing, such as some of these models we're seeing in similar sized cities that have, a station with 4 and a station with 5 or 6, compared to 2 stations with 6. I mean, there's big cost when you're talking about a 24/7 operation for that additional staffing. What's the rationale behind 2 ambulances versus 1 ambulance, a ladder truck, if there's if we already have a ladder truck at our disposal. So those are some of the questions I would have, any others you all have, but I think we're kind of at that point now, and maybe a little bit more on the locations. I know we've touched on it, but how does this help us get, what do these times, these response times really do? Narrow in on that.
Okay, so we're talking about, as far as cost, we're talking about certainly building it, but then ongoing would be the maintenance of the facility plus the operations and the staffing. So I'm just wondering, as far as what about having a having what we need in one of them, maybe the new one, or with where we are, but then to have a substation that, and maybe that's the second one, is more of a substation. There's been discussion over the past years to be able to, maybe have that second one, not a full-blown firehouse, but a facilities that would allow us certainly for the EMS coverage.
And maybe that's another option, Alderman, to have, instead of a pumper ambulance and then a pumper, maybe pumper ambulance, and then you have a facility with just an ambulance. That's something to pose.
I know that has been discussed a lot over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And you look historically, what Jeff just said, how they managed. I mean, to me, if we could do both, that's wonderful. But, again, I'm looking at the reality or what is really going to give us the biggest amount of coverage and, save lives. Then maybe it's more EMS than fire, with a lot of homes now have, their fire system, their alarms and that, and maybe we could look historically as far as the amount of calls that are for EMS versus the full-blown fire. Just thought.
Yep, Bob and Morgan, could you pull maybe some of that data?
Yep.
Just so we look at the EMS calls versus the fire. Obviously, we want to make sure they're both protected, but EMS is probably a lot more common in looking at these items.
It seems to me that even if you go that approach just for kind of early cost savings, and while we're still developing as a community, that you want to build it with the possibility of expanding services, in the bays, for example, the vehicle bays. So that's another possibility.
Yeah, most definitely. Like build it with a footprint that you could add more bays.
Yeah, see it in it.
We're not regretting our decision 5 years from now, or 10 years from now even. We want it to last a lot longer.
Definitely.
What other questions would you like to schedule or any kind of data for our next conversation with Chief Sadler?
Can everybody hear me?
We can.
This is Todd. Okay, all right. I had to call back in because I think I was muted and I didn't know how to unmute myself. So, but are we still? I know at one point they were talking about having like a equipment shed or a field shed or something that was going to be built with, with the firehouse or something, or a field house or something. Is that still something that the township would look to do, or has that already been accomplished?
So I'll answer that if that's okay, Alderman. Todd, you're exactly right. We would, and we have budgeted over the recent years and just not been able to keep it in, for a public works maintenance facility, because currently we store some equipment in that salt dome, which is really bad for the equipment. So a separate building or an annex to a fire station, kind of a co-locate, would be an excellent asset for our community to store some of our public works type of equipment. We don't have a lot because we contract a lot of it, but just some skid loaders and some equipment like that would be helpful.
Okay, because the reason why I ask is I I think, you know, we have a couple opportunities or options at hand, but just on a personal basis, I've always felt the more we can control in our own ecosystem, the more efficient we'll be down the road, and the more, in the long run, the more economic it'll be, more beneficial it'll be for all parties. But obviously, getting there is the hard part. But if there's a way for us to, and I know we were talking about either a special assessment or, you know, $140 tax per household would make a difference per year kind of thing. And I know that's something that we talked in the last meeting, but if there's something that Town and Country has been budgeting for that just hasn't been able to do, if there's a way for us to kind of pull all those together and help, you know, use resources and funds, I just think that would be beneficial for us. But I don't know if the land would be large enough to house both what they're looking to accomplish if we do that.
Well, and to add on to that, at one point, didn't Jeff say that Chief Cavens had said it would be helpful to have a second location substation for the police? Yeah. Some of this sometimes makes too much sense.
Would it be easier passing a budget or raising funds if it was, if we kind of had if we had multiple benefits tied into it as opposed to just a firehouse? Because I don't know anybody's going to say no to a firehouse. I really don't. But at the end of the day, if we say, hey, it's for our firehouse, this is what we need to do. This is what we're proposing. And oh, by the way, for the past X amount of years, we're also going to be able to satisfy, you know, the field shed or the equipment, you know, field house, and also be able to expand the substation to our police station. This is going to have a multiple effect. I just think it might put two things. We might put it on top of the ledger to address, number one, and number two, it's something for everybody. So I don't know too many people that would want to, you know, they might say, well, we don't really need to do too much for the field house. I don't see how that benefits me, but I do like the fire and police, you know, and stuff like that. So I just think if there's a way for us to piggyback on it, we'll have a better opportunity doing the big ticket item, which it seems like the biggest ticket item we have is build on our own. And, you know, whoever manages that for us is one thing, but having our own facilities is obviously going to be very expensive.
Okay. So Bob, what I propose is we kind of outline some options that we just discussed. We can send this to the task force and then outline the questions that we've discussed, and then the task force can kind of think about it and figure out other questions that we'd like to move forward with, and then we can schedule a time with Chief Sadler. And I know he's said he'll make himself available anytime. I think he is flexible. So if we had, you know, a primary and a secondary date to schedule to give him, we can have another Zoom here right after the new year to keep the ball rolling from that standpoint. But if you have anything else, Bob, that would impact the overall decision, being able to bring, here's the public works need, the shed, or here's a substation, you know, just to kind of put that in there and to quantify it, or just put it on paper a little bit, just so we can clarify what that looks like as a, you know, the primary is the fire, as we're talking about, if there is additional benefits to our residents as we look at the future in servicing the city. Okay.
This actually, you know, we had the infrastructure task force, and at some point, I think it'd be nice to point out some of the at least the primary concern of that infrastructure task force, because what we're talking about goes to infrastructure. It's nice to link what one group does with somebody else.
Most definitely. So any other thoughts, Don, Amber, or Todd?
No, I was just thinking if Bob does put some of that together the next meeting, I think if we have Chief Stadler, I mean, he could answer some of our questions and we could actually question him on the proposed map layout and what have you. And I think we just get a lot more information from him and we could just kind of brainstorm a little better if he was involved in the meeting.
Agreed.
I agree too. So we'll do that. And then, I mean, the end goal is we're going to come out with a couple options and then obviously we'll look at the planning, the staffing, the ongoing operational expenditure, and then the capital expenditure on those. And as we look at funding it, the next area, after we figure out here are our three options that we think would be best. I think that's the path forward.
And I don't know, I'd like to, maybe Chief Cavins, as far as, because I know he had mentioned that he's looking for something out west, kind of a remote office, if you will. And I think maybe he should be brought in on that to kind of give us his 2 cents on that. I think that'd be valuable to all of us.
Good.
Good. Bob, do you have anything else at this point?
I will just throw in, since I know both Don and Todd had talked about the kind of police substation, especially with this virus, the police departments that have multiple locations have been able to find by separating their staff. So all of ours come into one area for report writing, any breaks, the restroom, although they can go to the Longview or something. But the departments that have a couple of locations, like a substation where some of their officers can go to take various reports and things, is beneficial. So
Sure.
I know the Chief Cavins would agree.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with you.
Okay.
Do we need to come up with next options for meeting? Or
Schedule the next meeting? Yes. So everybody's free on the 24th or the 31st?
Sure.
Sure, anything for you, Ryan.
Right. No. We wish everybody to have a safe, happy holidays. If we all have our calendars open, let me just ask, I know we had to reschedule this one. Is morning better for everyone?
I'm open anytime.
Okay.
I'm good at time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It just depends on the day, whether I'm traveling or in other meetings.
Understood. Okay. Let me just pull. What would? No. Calendar wants to pull. All right, what would the? Anybody free on the Friday, the 15th of January in the morning?
Sure.
Okay. And I'm hoping, obviously, some of the at stay, if everyone's still comfortable to meet at Longview that morning, and if someone has to Zoom in, or would you rather do Zoom?
I know that
I can't do the 15th.
Okay. So why pick a different date? Would you rather be in person or Zoom for the next meeting with Chief Sadler?
I know I'm going to be out of town for several weeks, but I can Zoom from anywhere.
So
I'm fine either way.
Okay. So Todd, let's see.
If the 15th is going to work for everybody,
It's going to be tricky for me too. I just was looking at my travel that day. So unless we just pick the perfect time, it was going to be hard for me.
So what, if you look at a week in January, Amber and Todd, what weeks work, and Don, what weeks works best for you? Let's start with
I'm
like,
pretty good the 18th, the week of the 18th, so long as it's not that Monday, but that Tuesday through Friday, I've got availability every day.
okay, Don,
I would have to call in. I'm out of town for quite a while in January, but I can call in and be involved that way, no problem.
good for you. Okay. I'm glad you, Todd?
I'm good the 19th one.
19th.
On the 19th on, I'm good the rest of the month. It's
Oh,
just-
on. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
What if we did the 21st in the morning? I just want to respect the chiefs, but if we're going to have both chiefs potentially there, 8
Yeah.
o'clock or 8:30, 21st. Does that work for you,
Yep,
Bob and
that works for
Morgan?
me.
Sue?
I'm good with that.
Okay. So Morgan, if you don't mind sending out, we'll put it for an hour and a half. It might just be an hour, but I want to make sure if we have, get into details with Chief Sadler, we have the time to use that. Did you have anything to say, Bob?
What was the date again?
January 21st
January 21st.
at 8 o'clock
Okay.
via Zoom. I think if we have, what I found is you have one or two people on Zoom, it's just, you might as well just do it all on Zoom. So just so we can have everybody looking at the same screens.
Oh, it's fine.
Okay. Do we want to put something out in February just to have a placeholder where we have 3 out of the 4
Makes sense. Let's do it.
residents? All right. Since we have a couple minutes, the 18th.
Looks good.
Works for me.
I'm good.
Hold on, that's President's Day? No, that's
Uh,
after President's Day weekend.
Yeah, it's
But that's
Thursday.
fine.
Okay. So we'll put it tentative till we confirm with George, but we have February 18th in morning, Bob there. And Morgan, if you guys can send an invite with the Zoom. Okay. And then does anybody have any other items they'd like to discuss at this point? No? I just like to, again, thank you for your volunteering to help our city and our residents, and I wish, obviously this is long-term strategic planning. The offer from Chief Sadler, West County EMS, and Bob and our city attorney have moved forward on executing the 1-year extension of the agreement. So we will go into 22 as discussed earlier. And there was, obviously we talked about, there was some capital that they had invested in. So there's a little additional cost, but that will be coming up as we build a plan. I think it would help as we move forward. I don't know if the next agreement will have any of that in there, but we'll have the discussion. And then, as we really start looking at the future, 2030, 2035, what fire and EMS looks like for town and country will be great. So I appreciate.
I'd like to add one thing. I guess I should add it. Can't add it. I am looking for a sponsor. Like last year, Bob and I had talked with someone to add the 4 little words of the existing statute or who contracts with. And so just to give us possible options for longer term proceeding. I am looking for a sponsor down in Jeff City. I don't know how, all the logistics will play out, but that's something that I think is worth continuing to try to look for. If we wanted to do something similar to what De Pere has done.
Okay. And so just to be clear, who would it be a resident? Would it be a sponsor or?
No, sorry, the sponsor would be a probably a House or a Senate member of the state legislature, of the General Assembly. Sorry.
Okay.
I left some of that.
Gotcha. Sure.
So,
okay. Perfect. Well, thank you. Well, with that, I wish everybody a happy, safe holiday, even though we have some limitations. Enjoy the people closest to you, and we call the meeting to order. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
A motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you all for your time.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
We'll follow